Number 10. Loki. Loki has shifted so much in comics. He's technically a different character from that original Loki that first appeared in Venus issue number 6 and again in Journey into Mystery issue number 85. Loki's look originally was pretty silly, especially if we're talking about trying to adapt that look to the big screen and make it look menacing. We do get a version of that sort of original costume in the Loki series when we see an older, bitter, and sadder Loki who actually more reflects that original costume and that original Loki. Loki now appears to look much cooler in the comics and is also much more versatile when it comes to their style. This has also translated to the big screen where Tom Hiddleston's Loki has also gotten more and more dapper and stylish as time has gone on as well. At least that's how I see it. Number 9. Harley Quinn. I know people love the original costume, so this might be like kind of a hot take, but I personally think Harley has had so many amazing costumes and looks over the years that have just improved on what was already, well, good. I'm not saying the original costume was bad, to be clear. So yeah, I'm not saying the original costume that she had was at the level of some of the other ones on our list, Loki, being too much, you know, or too ridiculous, but I am saying that I think her design has only really improved with time. It's a compliment, Harley. Take it. Of course, not all of her looks have been winners in comparison to that original look, but I do think that her current outfit has definitely been one of her best that we've seen so far. And then of course there is her whole Birds of Prey looks, which I loved, and her The Suicide Squad DCEU look, which seems to have been inspired by more modern Harley Quinn comics and video game designs. And to be clear, we're talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. Not David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Those are two very different looks, are they not? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more cool supervillain redesigns that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Joker. The Joker is another character who has come a long way when it comes to his different looks. While his iconic face paint has remained, he's had many different outfits over the years, and many different iconic pieces that we would identify as being part of his costume. Purple and green remain the Joker's colors, but instead of wearing a suit with like a ribbon looking tie that kind of reminds me of something like a child would wear, like a kid in the olden days, or some kind of like floppy bolo tie, he is typically seen more in a trench coat that happens to be purple. Also, if anyone knows what that tie is called, it's like a little bow, but it's like a string. Let me know in the comments. I don't know what that's called. I do not know. The Joker looks less ridiculous and more menacing in modern comics, with the pranks of his earlier days also getting twisted along with his appearance. In more modern comic book tales, Joker has also been particularly terrifying, at one point having removed his face and stapled it back on in Death of the Family in 2011, and at another point sporting his own intimidating Joker-inspired batsuit during Joker War in 2020. Both of these are great looks, but very different looks.
Number 7, we've got Anti-Monitor. Yes, this villain appears a lot on these powerful villain super lists, but I couldn't ignore him on this one even if I tried. His influence in the comics is immense, but what places him in this list is primarily his near infinite age. This guy was born in the early days of the cosmos, lived for over 9 billion years in a dormant state, and even fought a battle with his counterpart, Monitor, for 1,000,000 years. It's hard enough for most beings to live that long, let alone be in a constant battle the whole time. And on top of all this, he's also just proven to be nearly impossible to kill. Even when he's vanquished for good, he isn't really killed, but instead broken up into molecules and scattered through the universe. And he had to be punched into a star to make that happen. By Superman from Earth 2, with the help of Darkseid, Superboy Prime, Dr. Light, and heroic Lex Luthor. So I'd argue that Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list.
Number 6. The Riddler. The Riddler originally looked Jim Carrey levels of Riddler ridiculous when he first appeared in Detective Comics issue 140. And that's not a slight to Jim Carrey, by the way. I still love that version of the Riddler. Just also a side note, when I call things ridiculous or weird, it's not necessarily an insult coming from me. And while I do have respect for the Riddler's original question mark suit, I don't think it's necessary for him to be covered in question marks so that we know he's the Riddler. He likes riddles. We get it. Riddler has had a ton of redesigns since that first appearance, with a good number of his modern takes being much improved on in comparison. Okay, so not all of the modern takes on the Riddler have been great. See Riddler with his hair shaved into a question mark shaped green mohawk. that was a weird time. But overall, I think we can say we've seen a marked improvement. I also do love the recent redesign with Paul Dano playing the Riddler in the Batman film. I feel like this design for the character was definitely one of the most terrifying looks for him yet, and also fit really well with his origin and his backstory, and just with the overall tone of that film, which takes inspiration from the comics but very much grounds the character of the Riddler in reality, giving him more power as well in the process. I think. Like when you make it just not about like silly riddles and you make it about like what is the Riddler and why are there riddles and what is this really about, I mean, it's a powerful character. Number 5. Trapster. Trapster was once known by the unfortunate name of Paste Pot Pete. Well, he's still not an A-list villain. Trapster's look and name are at least a lot better than what he was originally working with. He was once a villain who simply was obsessed with a glue gun, sticking people in place and sometimes clumsily getting trapped in his own glue. Fortunately, from there the character was expanded upon and changed his name, sick of being ridiculed, making his whole thing more about creating traps than just, you know, trapping people in glue. I think overall a good decision from Trapster's point of view. Unfortunately, many heroes still tease him from time to time as they still remember the days when he was known as Paste Pot Pete. Yeesh, they will not let him forget. Number 4. Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate have always been cool, but over the years their looks have gotten a lot more detailed, badass, and in some cases, a lot hotter. I'm here for the sexy Crime Syndicate, I must say. I'm feeling it. The Crime Syndicate are actually one of the earliest villain teams to take on the Justice League, making their first appearance in 1964 in Justice League of America issue number 29. At least the earlier continuity version of that team, that is. Because this is DC we're talking about here, so you know, now we're on Prime Earth and that was before that, but anyways. Back then their outfits were less sleek and more blocky, such was the time. They were also a lot less sexy back then overall as a team, and had a lot less independent flair, with their looks being just a little bit more rough and basically similar adaptations of the team members that they were mirroring. I mean, Owlman literally has Batman's look from like the neck down almost exactly, with only the Stark owl on his head setting him apart. It's a look.
We're in the top 3, folks, and at number 3 we have none other than Thanos. I know, yes, in the movies he was beheaded, but many argue that this isn't the end of him. Thanos is an ancient Eternal who was born on the planet Titan to his father Alars, also an Eternal. So, this dates Thanos back about 1 million years, and Thanos himself is an Eternal, meaning we can at least deduct that he's immune to all disease and aging. In fact, Thanos was specifically banned by death from his realm, meaning it's almost confirmed that he can't be killed. So yeah, in the movie, spoiler alert, should have said that by now, we all saw him die. But by the laws of this character's storyline, this won't be the last we see of Thanos, no matter how severe the injury appears to be.
Number 2. Lex Luthor. Lex looks a lot cooler and a lot more dapper in modern comics than his original appearance. Remember when he used to wear a purple suit with green pants? What is it with villains in purple and green? Especially over at DC. What's going on over there? It's kind of a very shocking combo of colors, especially for someone like Lex. Although I will admit, put it into a mech type suit, gloss it up a bit, and it works a little better for me. I do like it. Lex used to wear this purple suit with straps across over it and a very Dracula-esque high collar with bright green pants and purple boots. Fortunately, he now more keeps to suit and tie looks, looking a lot more polished and refined, and occasionally mixes in some badass mechanical armor, which makes him look a lot more intimidating than that collar ever did. Number 1. Killmonger. Talk about villains who have seen an upgrade. In Jungle Action issue number 6, we got our first look at Killmonger. I don't even think you'd recognize him today if your main experience with this character came from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther and Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. The original look for Killmonger involved a lot of spikes, as opposed to a lot of horrifying scars. He didn't initially mark himself for his kills, instead, he was just really pointy. He also wore white pants and a red sash, with no shirt initially. We've come a long way since then, with Killmonger having even been to space and back, where he ruled over the Wakandan space empire. And thankfully his look has changed quite a lot since then. I'm partial to his symbiote look personally, still a little spiky, but you know, it doesn't overdo it. Nothing wrong with a little bit of spikes, you just don't want to have too many. Number 10. Lady Deathstrike. I'm often torn when it comes to a character like Lady Deathstrike. When it comes to her initial appearance and costume as a villain, it was an iconic and terrifying look for the character, but over the years I believe we've done right by her to update her look and make her look more refined, but also still terrifying. In fact, the fact that she doesn't always wear the horror of her appearance on her sleeve, broadcasting it for the whole world to see, almost makes her more frightening to me at times. Of course, even without that first iconic look, she still sometimes does like to dress up spooky scary, but I like that now her design usually gives us some more depth when it comes to what kind of villain and character Yuriko Oyama is. Honestly, I also really loved her design in the Messiah complex. Terrifying, intimidating, but less cartoonish I suppose than her original design. Number 9. King Shark. King Shark is a shark, and has always been a shark, but hasn't always been a great white shark. He's actually had quite a few different looks over the years, although I cannot deny his recent redesign that we got in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and which kind of carried over somewhat to his own Suicide Squad spin-off comic series, is probably one of the best ones we've seen in a while. King Shark here is more a humanoid great white, a beast of a landfish who walks around on 2 feet, but is still tough enough to fall more than 20 stories and still get back up somehow. There is also a sweetness and innocence to this cannibalistic creature that we know as Nanaue that comes across both in his character redesign and costume redesign, with how casually he is often dressed. And friends, before we move on to this next point, be sure to go check us out on Facebook if you aren't already. We just relaunched everything over there. It looks super cool, so make sure if you're on Facebook you are following us. Do it now. I'll wait. Number 8. Poison Ivy. My feelings on Ivy are similar to my feelings on Harley when it comes to her costume design. Although I think when it comes to her overall redesign and growth as a character, I actually feel like her changes have been even more significant in comparison to Harley's, possibly just because she's been around, quite a bit longer. Poison Ivy made her first appearance in Batman issue 181 back in the 60s. The look she sported back then has always kind of reminded me of Peter Pan, a sexy lady version of Peter Pan, but Peter Pan nonetheless. I think it's the tights and the shoes, honestly, and the green, or I don't know, maybe the Jolly Green Giant mascot. Yeah, she also kind of has that look going on, minus the green skin. However, now Ivy generally is depicted with having green skin, but fortunately her outfit has evolved and changed with the times, so she's not like full-on Jolly Green Giant. From her going to what she wore originally, to wearing underwear and an open button-up shirt in the Arkham Batman games, to a full dark green bodysuit in modern comics, to something that pays a little more homage to her original plant-covered look with her Queen Ivy redesign. I gotta say actually, that Queen Ivy redesign initially I was like, I don't know about that. And it came around on me. I quite like it now. Number 7. Toad. Toad has also had a lot of different looks throughout the years, with his original one being the most ridiculous. And also fitting, but also so ridiculous. But I'd say the real cool thing about Toad is that a lot of the time his outfits actually really reflect how he's feeling inside and his evolution as a character. This is why at first it's really no surprise that Toad basically is dressed up as a court jester in his first appearances. At that time that was basically what he was, acting as Magneto's often disappointing goon who wanted nothing more than to please his master, but usually kind of failed at doing so. Toad? As time went on, Toad would come to realize that he didn't actually need to settle for Magneto's mistreatment of him, and that he was no longer really indebted to Magneto. In various depictions of the character, he'd become somewhat more independent, and sometimes a lot more Toad-like in terms of his design. Fox X-Men movies, I'm looking at you. And in terms of his roles, he also even went from being a villain at Magneto's side in the comics to kind of a weird ally of the X-Men when he became the school janitor in Wolverine and the X-Men. Remember when that happened? He also at one point got a flaming tongue. So he's changed a lot. I don't know if I'm as here for the weird green flaming tongue, but I definitely feel like his look is a lot better now than it was before. Also like that he's kind of like a hacker now. I think that's cool. Number 6. Captain Boomerang. Boomerang. Oh boy, what a long way this character has come. In fact, the main Boomerang that we've come to know in the comics isn't even the same person anymore. Is it still Owen Mercer now? Owen Mercer is the son of the original Boomerang, and even when Captain Boomerang was the OG, George Harkness, he had quite a different look. Captain Boomerang made his first appearance in issue 117 of the original Flash series, where he sported a boomerang patterned outfit, white scarf and white sash. Also his little hat. This look was something. Honestly, it reminds me of like a flight attendant. And I kind of would like to see it come back, even though it's quite a bit more flamboyant than what Harkness wore in later years, and definitely a lot less intimidating. Still, it's pretty fun. Obviously I'm saying it got better as time went on, but I still like this look. Harkness would later become more synonymous with a more street-inspired look, wearing a trench coat and often covered in boomerangs, but not as a pattern, more as like armament instead. So that, you know, he could throw a boomerang and then throw another one. Boomerangs all over the place. Boomerang patterns and blue outfits with little hats. I need to do a cosplay of that original look.
Alright, at number 5, I'm putting Dormammu. Am I pronouncing that right? Another villain who's been around for countless millennia, possibly even millions of years. Dormammu proves to be powerful enough and durable enough to possibly be considered immortal. One piece of evidence is his clash with Agamotto, a spawn of one of the elder gods where Dormammu actually held his own. And for those of you who don't know, Agamotto easily contended against Galactus himself. And if that wasn't enough to suggest Dormammu's potential for immortality, he's also immune to aging and harm of any kind, physical or mystical. His powers have also been used for resurrection in the past, so it's fair to say that stopping this guy will be tough, and arguably won't be permanent in any case.
Number 4. Despero. Despero used to have a weird gill side hawk and an orange jumpsuit, but now he's got like a gill mohawk and looks like a badass. For those of you unfamiliar, Despero is actually one of the oldest enemies of the Justice League of America. He made his first appearance in Justice League of America issue number 1 from 1960. In other words, he's pretty old school. Not only has his look completely changed, but his whole deal is pretty much changed as well. When we first met Despero, he was a villain who was all about mind control and playing lots of chess, not known for his physical prowess. Over time, the depiction of this Kalanorian alien villain changed and he became more known for his strength than his fondness of chess and his mind games. Although the modern character of the version from Earth Prime has both super strength and psionic powers. So too did his appearance change, with him trading in that jumpsuit for a cape and, you know, some prominent abs. Cause that's what makes you look scary, I guess. Gotta have the abs, gotta be real jacked. I do like though when he was like, I will play chess with you, ha ha ha, I'm a villain. We need more chess-based villains. Someone make that, please. Number 3, Kang the Conqueror. Okay, so Kang still looks pretty crazy, even in the comics, but he's come a long way from that wild purple and green eyesore when it comes to his cinematic appearance at least. We saw our first, likely of many, Kangs in the Disney Plus streaming series Loki. Here Kang was played by the amazing Jonathan Majors, and instead of sporting his very blue face and purple helmet, he was dressed simply in a nice purple robe with green tunic, pants, and sandals underneath. A nice nod to the original design while still providing its own unique take on his look, and a take that is quite a bit more sensible and stylish. Still, an air of flamboyance in how he's dressed, but not so over the top that it undermines how intense, inevitable, and intimidating He Who Remains, aka an alternate Kang, appears to be here. Number 2, Ultron. Ultron has come a long way since his first appearance, disguised as the Crimson Cowl in issue 54 of the Avengers, and then introduced fully as the menace known as Ultron 5 in issue 55. Even then, he'd already apparently come a long way from his first model, his first design, which was revealed in a flashback in issue 58 of the Avengers, where this crude yet workable robot calls inventor Hank Pym his daddy. That was quite a crude looking version of Ultron. Since then, Ultron has become more and more menacing in his appearance as time has gone on, with one of the most terrifying redesigns of the character appearing, for me at least, in the alternate reality from Marvel's What If Disney Plus series, where he actually succeeded in taking over Vision's form. The more humanoid Ultron looks to me, which is basically what also has happened over time with his design, with him even at one point fully merging with his father, Hank Pym, in the comics, the more terrifying I find his appearance to be. And what is really the point of a redesign for a villain if not to make them more menacing, horrifying, and intimidating to readers and the heroes they come up against? I mean, you're either going for more scary, I think, or more depth. Or ideally more depth and more scary. That's the best. Number 1, General Zod. General Zod has received A major upgrade when it comes to his look over the years. Oh my goodness. And this improvement has made him a lot more intimidating when it comes to his overall appearance in the comics. When General Zod first made his appearance in Action Comics in issue 283, we really only saw him in a flashback panel where it was revealed he was condemned to spend 40 years trapped in the Phantom Zone. Oh no! He appears as just a guy in a green uniform, not particularly muscular, wearing little booty shorts? Possibly no pants? It's hard for me to tell if his pants or tights are just the color of his skin or if they are non-existent, as I'm really only looking at, like scans of this. So he's either just running around in green short shorts and matching knee-high boots, or he's got tan pants on. I'm not sure which. But either way, he's got his underwears over his pants or just no pants. Now, General Zod is less associated with the colors of tan and green, and is more affiliated with the colors of black and red, often donning armor in those colors and sporting menacing yet cleanly shaped facial hair, really evoking those kneel before Zod vibes in the present. I mean, I can't even believe it's Zod when you go back and look at that original appearance. Woo! Looks so silly.
At number 10 we have Annihilus. Using the Cosmic Control Rod, Annihilus ameliorates his own well-being, spending most of his time trying to find ways to make himself, yes, immortal. The rod is known to have almost limitless capabilities, so his efforts aren't in vain, as he has found ways to fend off disease, slowing down cellular degeneration, otherwise known as aging, and warding off heat and cold. He also uses it to fly super fast, which is another plus. The only reason why Annihilus is back at number 10 for me is that he seems to need the Cosmic Control Rod to achieve immortality. And even while he has it, he's known to be liable to make big mistakes due to his paranoia that others are going to try and snatch it from him. Remember kids, the real superpower is up here. Number 9 goes to Apocalypse. This villain, often facing off against the X-Men, originated in ancient Egypt, giving hints that he's capable of existing for hundreds of years at a time without meeting death. Yeah, so he's also known to have supreme control over his body from an atomic level, being capable of growing in size and density whenever he chooses, and adapting to his environment and fighting off disease. Not only that, but he's immune to aging again. So when Apocalypse was finally defeated by Cable, he wasn't actually killed and regenerated in a tomb in Aqaba. So there you have it. It seems like this guy will always be around. Our best bet is to keep him at bay for a while before he inevitably comes back, possibly repeating this process for eternity. Alright, at number 8 we have Mephisto, a demon creature who presents similarly to how humans view Satan. And yes, he did this to manipulate our singular views of evil through our tale of Satan the fallen angel. Regardless, Mephisto is known to be so powerful that he does not need food or water, or even oxygen to survive. He even has abilities to regenerate in the instances that he is damaged, going as far as regrowing limbs. And he can also see his own future if he so chooses. So even if something was coming his way that could somehow usurp his seemingly immortal powers, he would see it coming and put a stop to it before it could reach him. Mephisto proves to be a threat throughout the ages, and although he does face certain limitations to his powers and influence, this list isn't about power, but about immortality. So there you go.
Number 7, Juggernaut. While Juggernaut still wears his Cyttorak armor, even he has seen some major improvements when it comes to his look over the years. And not just in the costume department either. We've also seen this character change a ton as a person, to the point that now he's a lot more anti-hero than villain even. Possibly even bordering on full-on hero, I'd say. Juggernaut no longer actually wears armor given to him by Cyttorak because he renounced the god, and instead used materials that Cyttorak had left from the times he basically reached out to Earth to forge his own armor. The result is a much more sleek looking design as opposed to the more clunky and stiff looking armor that he wore when he made his first appearance back in X-Men issue number 12. And that look is still iconic, don't get me wrong. It is quite similar to the overall character design, but a few important tweaks over time have greatly improved Juggernaut's overall look today. Juggy baby is looking good. I like that new armor.
Number 6 on our list goes to the one and only Kang the Conqueror. This villain is so powerful that he's able to change the course of history with little to no effort. His ability to traverse through time gives him supreme insight, and also the capability to appear in any time in the history of our universe, future, past, and present. He's a real contender for this list because although he's been defeated in the past, he was really only in a state of limbo. and he never truly meets a final end. I mean, he's able to not only design the outcome of reality in most cases, but also just exist in any time he'd like. He once lived in ancient Egypt, and also the turn of the 20th century. The point is, Kang shows time and time again that he's capable of existing in multiple times throughout history, which I would argue could be a form of immortality. As Schrodinger's logic would go, Kang has and hasn't existed at every moment in history and the future. It would just be up to us to observe him, and well, good luck with that.
Number 5. Cheetah. I mean, the Cheetah outfit has changed a lot since her first appearance, and so has the character. The first Cheetah villain we were ever introduced to in the pages of 1943's Wonder Woman issue number 6 is no longer the Cheetah we have in comics. Literally. Much has changed about the character, including her identity, her origin, and her overall look and power set. The original Cheetah was Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who dressed up in a skin-tight cheetah onesie. It's a look, I gotta say. Now we have Barbara Minerva as the main cheetah, who instead of dressing up actually has a humanoid cheetah form, having been transformed basically by a god. Very different looks and takes on this character, but I'd definitely say that Minerva's is better overall. Sorry Priscilla, it's just cooler. Like, I mean, then you get to actually kind of fight like a cheetah lady, as opposed to just a lady in a cheetah costume.
Okay, at number 4, we're looking at SURTUR, the 1,000-foot tall fire giant who can move stuff with his mind. SURTUR was the sworn enemy of Odin and Thor and eventually destroys Asgard. At a few points, SURTUR is imprisoned and banished, but never completely destroyed. Even after one of these instances where SURTUR was transported to the Sea of Eternal Light and frozen for all time, he still re-emerges after a Norwegian guy named Sven finds a medallion with connections to SURTUR, and subsequently turns into him. Thank you so much, Sven. And once again, when he's finally defeated by the Asgardians, he isn't really, since he just finds himself resurrected in a realm called Muspelheim. There's one instance where he's then beheaded by the Twilight Sword, another where he's basically destroyed by Odin who steals the Eternal Flame from him, but based on his track record, I'm not buying that any of these instances are the last of him.
Number 3. Magneto. Magneto was such a rectangle head back in the day. Don't tell him I said that though, please. I don't want him to come for me. But seriously, when it comes to Magneto's overall look, he's come a long way from just being a pair of piercing blue eyes peering out of a very boxy helmet. His look has always been iconic, that I definitely cannot deny, but over the years it's become a lot more refined and complex along with the character. When Magneto first appeared on the scene, he was kind of more of a two-dimensional evil mutant hell-bent on ruling over the humans and planet Earth, having mutants take their rightful place as the dominant species, Homo superior as they were known. Over time, his struggle became more nuanced as we learned more about his own backstory, which was quite tragic, and how he was mistreated, and it made a lot more sense that Magneto would want to fight for mutants who he felt had been marginalized, as he had been himself many times over through the course of his life. With this depth, his look also gained a lot of depth, and today, no matter which outfit he has on, he generally looks stylish, gentlemanly, and, well, all-powerful. As well he should. That upgrade? That's a 10.
Number 2, we've got the insatiable Galactus. This bad guy is hardly a villain anymore and more like a floating entity that feeds on the energy of life forms. Interdimensional and one of the oldest known beings to ever exist, Galactus always finds a way to bring evil to the cosmos. Even in his apparent death, he was replaced by Abraxas, who basically took over in his absence. As much as Galactus is able to endure, and despite his nearly infinite age, there are instances where he's weakened and put into submissive positions by other forces in the cosmos. The closest he comes to truly dying is when Thor and Galactus's attempted assault on the Black Winter goes horribly wrong and Thor turns on him, leaving him on the brink of death. A little too late, I'd say, considering you just let him consume 5 planets, Thor, but also good on you for killing Galactus sooner or later. But does Galactus ever die? Not really. Let's just hope that Abraxas doesn't come back again while he's gone. We don't want that. That guy's no good either. At number 1, we have the Goblin entity. This being was created at the point of the Big Bang, so one of the oldest on our list for sure. That said, The power of this villain has sustained over billions of years, and just like Galactus, it is driven by its insatiable hunger for energy. It's basically a giant, dark entity that moves through the cosmos, ingesting everything in its way. It is confirmed that the Goblin entity cannot die, and if it were to be killed, similarly to everyone else on this list, it would find a way to regenerate. It seems what we're dealing with in this top 10 is a group of villains that just won't stop, no matter how hard you try to defeat them. But perhaps by exploring the villains with potential immortality, we're also exploring the deepest depths of true metaphorical evil found in the DC and Marvel universes, in that in the real world as well, evil does always find its way back into the world, and all that can be done about it is temporary. Although those moments are sweet, where good wins, it's not long before we have to prepare for evil to return and rear its ugly head again.